Hi.
That was our countdown, Rebecca. Hey, we're live.
We're live. Where we're at. How are you? How are you? How are you?
Oh, just trying to keep it all going and trying to spark some joy in my life. We are talking today with somebody about sparking joy. And I think that's one of the hard things for me. I don't know about other people, but certainly to find, a way to keep life happy. You hit this kind of whatever bump and you're like,
Social scientists actually say, Brene Brown being sort of the top of the heap with this one, right? She talks a lot about how creativity and playing actually promote, health, and this healthy mind, healthy body. I think it's something that we need to incorporate.
Right. And a lot of people will, can think of play, people that are talking about this, as time spent without a purpose in mind.
So you have a friend you ran into, I think, on the subway recently in New York. Tell us about her.
Aurélie Harp and her organization, Womanity. They not only encourage adults to play, but also having fun in adulthood is at the center of her work. She says play is about growing and learning in ways that make us more productive, creative, and successful.
Hello, welcome. Could you tell us a little bit about your work at Womanity and, how you started and what you do?
Sure. Womanity Play is my coaching and consulting company where I use kind of everything I've been in my life, including theater, coaching, and improvisations, filmmaking, producing, advertising, marketing, you name it. It's using all the tools of who I am. And it started first as a project when I arrived in New York City, and I was struck by division, how people women, especially I was in my 30s, I was a young mom. I was a young mom with two little kids, and you see things from a little bit from as an outsider, and I started to think, what is going on? And I started an exploration and talking to people and, in conversations, asking people, way to slow down. So that's one of the first thing I was doing, was to play with who are we? How are we, living our life, defining ourselves, and just seeing how even the labeling of gender or race, on one side is both contributing to our development, but also putting us in boxes that are limiting and contributing to separating us. So long story short, this evolved into creating groups because I always loved theater and believe that theater is this kind of place where people come together to see a play, to watch, but also to be part of it. We are in the fourth wall, both witnessing and experiencing together a human experience. And what happened is, what do you do when you bring people together? And all of a sudden they start sharing their story. They start challenging the narrative that they've been stuck into, and they start playing with each other. So, and by playing, what I mean by that is it can be sometimes both literally playing, being a little bit ridiculous and doing things that we don't do every day, could we sing? Could we do something like faces? Could we, play a scene or something? But it's also seriously playing. Can we challenge the given? Can we look at small words and have big questions around those words, or what we say about our lives? Can we look at what we do every day and mess around?
You're playing with the assumptions then, as much as actually adding joy to life, right? And this
exactly
right.
It is connected. I think that's what brings joy, and that's this ability to realize that, to reclaim some power in what we do.
So the play is kind of in your work, you feel it's kind of an essential thing to bringing joy, kind of essential to how to live a joyful life. You need that play element to really bring joy in your life. So what would you define as a joyful life?
So what it means to me is, the ability to every day, again, when I said claim your power, meaning have the ability to create your life, to look at it, to be in it, and to realize that you are a decision maker. And doesn't mean that it's easy. I think like that's also sometimes we think that joyful means only laughing and fun. Joy is not always fun. It's also like, taking hard decision. How do you make that decision? And getting the courage to do something different, getting the courage to say, you know what? I've been reacting this way my whole life, or I've been following these rules my whole life. I'd like to do something different. And the results of breaking the rules, this process of both breaking and the results of breaking the rules is bringing joy, because all of a sudden you made a decision that you feel that I'm going to use the word control, even if I don't love this word, but in a word that is chaotic, improvisational, changing all the time, that all of a sudden this moment when you make a decision and taking a little bit of control over your life.
Right. It's the agency. It's this idea that, you know, I mean, obviously in a lot of therapeutic practices, they're teaching their clients to take control of their, you know, and we use that, but it's the agency over your own life, right?
Yes. And I would say paradoxically, what I'm saying to people is taking agency or taking control doesn't mean being like tense and tight and having this kind of A to B to Z. But the opposite is to be relational and maybe like, how can we, make decision in a way that is not so, cognitive, that is taking some risks and saying like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but, who can I talk to that is going to help me do that? That maybe I can role model and mimic. Who or what am I seeing in the world that makes me, excited or, that I feel that I really want to do that. So I think like what I want to say is paradoxically having agency is what if for once in our lives, we don't always go with, I need to know in order to make a decision, but more about experimenting and being curious with others in order to move forward.
The idea of control is more understanding that you make the choices. I think, we've spoken about how people often, especially when you get to this age, you've played the same role. Your thing is all about acting, right? You played the same role or various roles. You have your job role, you have your mom role, you have your partner role or whatever it is. And to realize that if those aren't making us happy, we actually have the choice of changing how our roles are, or changing the boxes that we fall into because we have created those in the first place.
I'm glad you guys are saying this because recently I've been having this fantasy about giving up the place where I live, where I've got a bedroom for each of my teenage children and, all the responsibilities that go with aging parents and just life in general, and just giving up everything. A lot of us do live in cities. We've got these responsibilities, right? We can't just throw everything to the wind. So how do we bring it in? How do you teach people to incorporate it when they do have these, this other life they can't just throw away?
So it's so interesting what you just said, because I think there is, in the work we do, there is, a difference in a way, or maybe like let's play again with the word, imagination or fantasy. That very often we think that the only way to dream is to have fantasy of things that are outside, not related at all to our lives. And in a way making us go somewhere else. What we're doing in the work is to say, no, we're here. And this is the world we live in. We, for the moment, we don't have another planet. This is the world we live in. So how can we continue to dream from what exists? And I think the big work we're doing is to look at the possibilities and to break out it's either this or that. It's either staying in New York City and having this hard life or the beach and it's impossible. What is in between? What are all the real possibilities in between?
What are all the factors that, I mean, there's so many factors that can contribute to that, obviously we just talked about, the kind of boxes that we put ourselves into, but surely things societal, cultural, all these other things come into play. So how can people kind of it's one thing to step out of your own box that you put yourself into, but to step out of the things that maybe society or your culture is expecting you to are kind of harder. What kind of, modalities do you work with people for that to move beyond those bigger things?
So I'm going to just make a little bit of history here. One of my mentor and everything I'm telling you is based on what we call social therapeutics. And that was a movement that was created in the 60s, 70s and so on in sort of a reaction to seeing the world only in psychology. And, as individuals, you are made a certain way, you have behaviors. And again, this is the box and that's how you react and kind of explaining the world in a way that is very knowing and scientific. And the idea was, well, but we're also creators and capable of, we are creating cultures. We are creating, we are social. So what else can we do? And this idea also in that development, and we talked about it, is how come as children, that's the way we learn is very playful. And all of a sudden we are told that play is for kids and that now you need to be serious and only use one part of your brain, which is the rational one and the logical one and so on and so forth. And what we're saying is I'm not even sure it's about being out of the box. We are in the box. I said we are in the world. And in this box, we have the possibility to imagine, what if the box was not there? What if the box was not, a square, but a rectangle with 3 dimensions and different colors and whatever? And we have this capacity, and we do. And the other thing is, I think it's hard to do it alone. You have to, first of all, one of the big thing I'm saying as a tool is to play with your thoughts, to play with your emotions, because our emotions in a way are not ours. They are in the world, and start to say things out loud. And all of a sudden to realize that you're not the only one feeling or thinking this way, that there are other people. And that all of a sudden it's oh, can we play with that? We don't know what's going to happen. Can we take the risk to just say it out loud and just, I'm going to give you an example. Last night I had a group and we decided to role play our dark thoughts. And, some people were like, that's the thoughts, that's my thoughts. I'm a terrible person because I'm so sad and so depressed all the time. And, and others were like, no, it's not your thoughts. It's because of what your father told you and society told you and school told you. Who knows? Where is the truth? I don't know. The thing is we have thoughts. So we started to say, can we give a voice to these thoughts and just instead of us talking about our thoughts, have our thoughts talk together. And I have no idea. It was an experiment. We had this kind of cacophonic, who would have the worst thoughts ever. And we ended up laughing. The whole point is, how can we add this messiness? How can we dare saying things that we didn't know we could say, doing things we didn't know we could do?
We found something on Instagram about play in adulthood. I think it was on LinkedIn actually. And it was saying that play in adulthood can do things. It improves creativity by encouraging divergent thinking, the ability to come up with new ideas or solutions by looking at things from different angles. It can boost self-confidence by providing opportunity for mastery experiences, like building a car out of Lego. And it relieves stress through laughter. So, all of those things look like really important things. If you think that adults are forgetting how to do this, or are not doing it because they think it's frivolous.
Yes.
But these are all the things that it can, has been proven to provide, so it's important to reconnect with that.
Yes. And I'm going to be both all the time in my response. And I know I'm very philosophical and I'm going to try also to be very practical, because what I want to say is that the whole point of everything we do is to be very practical. It's to really for people to be able to maybe have something that was so messy during a session that after they might be a little bit confused or whatever, or they're very clear on something they want to do because a desire had come up. And to your point, like, I think it's becoming more and more proven. And because we also live in a society that wants proof of, the benefits of play. Where the reason I'm always like a little bit, challenging the result oriented is, I don't want people to come again with the list is, I want to play because this is the results I want to get. And again, then we go back to boring. Mm-hmm. That's what, imagine if you said to a kid, so you're going to play because it's going to increase your memory. And they will be like, oh my God, I'm out. I don't want to play. So this is exactly the opposite of what we want to do. We want to have people come and just like, being so okay to share their fantasy, to expand their sexual desires, their like, or very practical, or their loneliness, to be able to talk about loneliness, to not being afraid and to create new emotions with it. That like loneliness doesn't have to be only sad, miserable, depressed. Could it be, I don't know, sad, ridiculous, fun, unknown, scary, and magical at the same time? I'm making that up, but could we create something by sharing and not taking it as a given? And I would say, especially I'm going back to women over 50, is we're talking about roles. Can we take that opportunity of transitioning to a new chapter and just saying, you know what? I don't want my roles to be so defined. I just want to be me. And me with my kids, how does that look like? Me with a partner, how does that look like? Me is my friend. You know what I mean? It's instead of saying I'm a mother, I'm a worker, it's you. Who do you want to become? And all of a sudden you have all these possibilities.
That is something that you said when we spoke. You said we are and we are becoming. Which I love that line. Like that was so great. Who do we want to be? Well, we never were just one thing. We're always constantly changing. And, when we had asked you about, what if someone's not into theater or they're not comfortable acting and you said, which is so brilliant, life is improv. We don't really know what's going to happen, so we're all just making it up as we go along.
I want to ask you a little bit about, culture. And it's occurring to me as we're having this conversation with your beautiful French accent that culturally, maybe here in North America, we're taught to be much more goal oriented. So I'm really interested in this from the outsider's point of view. Are you trying to bring a bit of French life to New York City? Is that what I'm hearing?
At least I'm trying to continue to have some French life in New York City. So I don't know if I bring it, but that's, but I think like to learn from every culture, by the way, because I would say the paradox is I'm a French who came in New York. And why did I come in New York is because of this cultural mix. Like you have so many different experiences. Now, to your point, I think that there is something very clear in America about the relationship to productivity is present in every interaction that we do. And when you wake up in the morning, it's very hard not to think about your day as how productive am I going to be today? But there is a moment, first of all, when you're exhausted. What happened when you don't have the safety net? When you don't even know how to relax anywhere? You don't know how to break that rule. It's kind of like I'm going to go further, but for me, it's almost like a mental disease when you're so used to do only one thing that you are incapable of not thinking, being in the present, not seeing, meeting a friend, even a friend, not as something to be productive or having a response or result to. And really what I'm trying to do, and me and my colleagues who are practicing this way of coaching, is to remind people that give a moment when we can do something different. Can we be in the present and not think about the why of the past? That is kind of like always the burden, or about what needs to happen in the future because we are so stressed that needs to happen. And again, I understand we live also in a society in America when, health is an issue. If you don't think about health, it costs you so much money. It's expensive. Education is expensive. So I think there is also that, like the whole entire society is very, move or die kind of, and
transactional. So there's definitely, in North America, I'm going to throw Canada in there as well, although we do have socialized medicine, but I do think that we get caught up in this transactional world. And I think what we do benefit from is getting away from that. So I know that when you're working with clients, you do individual and you do group. Can you explain the differences and how that works?
So I do both because, for me, everything is a relationship. So you come as an individual as a way to build a relationship with me. Usually people are coming with, a specific issue and very often I would say, I'm going to make a big stereotype here, but men come because of a work issue. And women come because of a life issue and relationship issues. It's very interesting just to notice that. And in the work on one-to-one, what we're really working on is how to look at the person's life, the client, the participant's life, with me in it and I am impacted by what they're telling me and I'm impacted by what I'm telling them. And we build this relationship and see how far it goes and how, creative we can be and become together. We're becoming, I'm, in other words, close. And to the point where every time I say to a client, either this journey, like we can continue it. It doesn't have to be it is for life. Like we started this relationship, but there is a moment when I'm going to offer you to go to group because, there is so much we can do, the two of us, as creative as we are. Let's go and mess around. And again, I'm going to use the word messy in a group when you are going to be surrounded by people who are different from you. How does that look like to be challenged by people who are different from you?
But that's what's happening every day in life. I mean, that is, like the group. I understand a lot of people are not necessarily comfortable in group, but when you come back to what you said about learning to play improvisationally and life, we don't know how the other person's going to react. We are always in a group. There's people on the street, people on the subway, people at work, people in the, anything, in the supermarket, whatever. There's loads of people. And you don't know how they're going to react. You don't know what they're going to say. So I, when people think about that, if they think about it in that way, they're already improvising in a group every hour of the day.
Correct. Absolutely. And what we do in group is to, in a way, put a lens on this, like to say, guess what? Here is a rehearsal room. So I'm going to go back to the theater language because that's something important to me. I'm not asking you in the group to become an actor and a professional actor, but I'm going to ask you to be an active participant on a stage in a group where we are going to try things on that maybe we dream of trying or we would not even dare thinking about trying, of way of being. So that's what I call performance. We do perform a role in every day of our lives. And I do think that what we experience, especially after 50, is being a bit fed up of either playing the same role over and over or being told by others, oh no, you cannot play that role anymore. You're too old or you're too boring or you're too whatever. And all of a sudden when you feel nobody because you have no more identity.
I can't go skinny dipping because I'm too old. Yeah. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
That's only from your kids. Other people want to see you skinny dip. I like that because it's occurring to me. I said that I don't, which sounds crazy because I used to work in television, but I don't like being kind of on a stage playing something else, like a theater. I can't wrap my head around that only because I don't know how to do it. But I'm realizing the other thing that we go back to, you said joy doesn't always have to be like fun. You do derive joy from doing and conquering, and I don't know what conquer is probably a bad word, but from, getting involved in the messy middle and coming out the other end, right? So I'm thinking if I'm in your group, I might not want to necessarily go and be with the group, but I know that you're providing a safe place so that the idea is when I'm coming out the other end, I actually have a joy that's derived from that work, correct? Is that the idea?
That's the whole thing we do in the group is, let's say I'm the director of the play and my role is going to help you and others create the conditions for you to feel more playful, for you to be and take risks. So also the way we're going to play is going to be very different from every group.
And maybe also people understanding that not limiting themselves to what they think the definition of play is, like we started off in the beginning, people think of play as what you do in the playground or what little kids do. And that is not, that's again, putting play into a box. Play has a much broader definition that is more applicable to us as adults. And once you start looking at it that way, you kind of realize, oh yes, I can be more playful and use that to bring more joy.
How can we bring joy and play? Like, as a practitioner, as somebody who's working in this field all the time, we started out talking about what we like to do for play. Lana and I were just, discussing it. We were like baking and kayaking and, hiking or walking with your dog. Lana, I think, referred to sex because she always does, but no. I want to know how you suggest we bring it into our everyday lives. If we can't, we're not going to be doing group all the time. So how do we bring it in? How do we incorporate it into our routine? Playfulness, joy.
Although you could do group all the time, because as Lena said, we are living in society with others. So in a way, you're constantly in groups. So that's one thing, by the way, that I would say is how to think about all your relationships and just say, hey, like very practically, I would love to have new conversations with you and can we start this or starting a new activity? So that's one thing. And I'm going to go back, for instance, to something practical like health or whatever. Like it's also like to organize with others so that you're not alone in doing things. And I think that's already like a big source of joy, is to not feel lonely, whatever the challenge you have. And it's, again, especially in the US and especially in New York City, when it's about health and everything, like just, can you create, like, one of my colleagues talked about the health team, create a health team. Can you create a fun team? I don't know. Can you create, like just to think about relationships you want to have, looking at your own relationship with your kids, like, are they new things you want to do with them? Do you, are you fed up? Like, or do you realize that you're not the same mom that you were five years ago? They don't need the same thing. You don't need the same thing. How can you be having relational conversations with them? I'm thinking about very practically, I do that every day, by the way, after an activity and especially after Zoom, to take 15 minutes or so and just to think about what you just did, breathe, and go do something completely different. And come back to your activity. So I like to I'm a rule breaker. So for me, it's like just, that's my way. I'm not saying that it should be yours, but, I found a great joy in breaking routines. Both doing it brings me joy and breaking the routine brings me joy. So what I'm saying is, like, if you can think about every day, leaving some space for unexpected. And what Lena was saying, like about looking at the present and, the coffee you just made, instead of drinking it and consuming it as a consumer, maybe you could, I don't know, smell it, and look at the sky and the birds and take 7 minutes instead of 5. I'm making that up because I don't want to give makeup recipe, but because as you can hear me, what I want to push people is to do things that they didn't think they could do. Could that be talking to a stranger in the street? And all of a sudden, I'm going to say, I think one of the hardest thing in New York City for me is being in the subway and seeing homeless people. And having this negotiation with yourself. Oh my God, do I give money? I'm scared, whatever. And all of a sudden, sometimes to just dare looking at them in the eyes and give a smile
Yes, so important. So
like even talking about it, I feel like, just reconnecting with people on a human level. So that's big, by the way. That's not easy. But it's that, or, to feel like I don't know, for instance, right now, I've been thinking I haven't danced or laughed so much for a while. It's about time. And I want to be ridiculous. I have no idea what it's going to be, but I'm a bit fed up of being serious. And I can be very serious, so I'm giving you that.
A little bit of dancing. I'm going to New York soon. We're going to find like a 90s hip hop club, and we're going.
There used to be a club in New York in the 90s, the Roxy. They had a swing. Spent a lot of time on that.
I remember hearing about that swing, and I think I saw a picture of a bunch of supermodels on that swing. Naomi, Christy, and
I spent a lot of time on that swing in that nightclub.
I am sure you did.
Good times.
I'm sure you did. But you and I can find a park when I go there, and maybe put you on a swing. And
you can push me.